Again, we're here with Rick Broering of Rivals.com, recruiting analyst. He's out there on the national scene. He also covers Xavier basketball for Rivals. If you have any recruiting questions, we're getting ready to talk Kentucky recruits, but if you have any recruiting questions regarding Louisville or Kentucky or any other recruiting questions that Rick might be able to answer for you, go ahead and give us a call at 267-9680. Again, that's 267-9680. Rick, let's move over to Kentucky. You and I have talked a lot about how excited we both are for Kentucky basketball. You've covered a lot of the guys. You've seen a lot of them play. You like all of them, but talk about Anthony Davis and your history with him first and foremost, and what you've seen from him in the AAU circuit.
Well, Anthony Davis is a guy who just blew up, and I mean absolutely out of nowhere. We're talking about a kid that literally we were at the Spies Fieldhouse in Indiana watching a tournament, and we're watching his Chicago-based team play, Mean Streets, and there's a couple other prospects on the team, but he's just really standing out. And we're talking about a 6'10 guy who's sort of dominating the game, but yet at the same time playing like it's a Final Four a championship type ball game. And that's not something you usually see in an AAU tournament. You don't see guys diving out of bounds after loose balls and things like that. And he was 6'10, really skilled in doing all that. It was kind of catching everybody's eye. So, I mean, at halftime, literally, you're talking about Dave Tellep from ESPN, Evan Daniels from Scout, Brian Snow from Scout. All the national writers are sitting there like, will you go over to the scorebook and check who's that kid is? So I went over, looked at his name, Anthony Davis. So then we just saw him take that meteoric rise through the rest of his summer. And you've heard all the stories. He was a 6'4 guard, shot up to 6'10. The thing about Anthony Davis is he's just such a unique athlete, and not in the sense of, he can run and jump, but just the body control, the way he runs the floor. He's so fluid, and his hands, his catch radius when you're throwing the ball on the run. He's so good at playing in transition and playing at a high pace for a guy who's a legit 6'10". It's just really impressive to watch, and he's going to be fun all year. You know, I always talk about my favorite part of watching his game is the amount of jump shots that he blocks. It's just a weird skill to have. I mean, I've never seen someone who blocked so many three-point jump shots in an AAU game than Anthony Davis, and we saw it the other night against Pikeville. He had like seven blocks, I think, and 4 of them were on jump shots. It's kind of weird to see.
That was actually Transy, Rick.
Transy, whoever it was.
Doesn't really matter at this point. But another guy that you like, you kind of talk about this guy and Anthony Davis in the same sense when it comes to effort, and that's Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. You love the way these guys play, not just their overall skills, but their love for the game and passion and their work ethic on the floor.
And the way we talked about Blackshear with Louisville, he's another guy in that same mold. He's a winner. Flat out. He just does the right thing. He makes the right play. He makes everyone else better. He gives you maximum effort. He's a great defender. Kidd-Gilchrist. I got to get used to adding the kid in there. I was just used to call him Mike Gilchrist, but Kidd-Gilchrist. He's
just call him Gilly.
That's right, Gilly the kid. He's a great athlete, and sometimes that gets lost, and his ability to score gets lost because you talk about his versatility and everything else he brings to the table. But we sort of saw in that game some of his offensive production the other night in that exhibition. The way he can get to the basket, and some of his moves around the rim were really impressive.
All right, let's move on to 2012. Kentucky has a couple of commitments already. We have Archie Goodwin and Will Cawley that have, they've said they're going to be Wildcats for the 2012 season. You haven't seen Cawley play a lot, but you know what his game's about. What are the reports on him, and how's he going to fit into Kentucky's system?
Yeah, Cawley's a guy that for whatever reason I just missed a lot of the times. He wasn't a guy that was necessarily on my radar for what I was looking at tournaments. But, I caught him enough. And the biggest thing about Cawley and why I think it's interesting that Cal's going after him is because he's not necessarily a one-and-done guy. He's a project in some ways. And he's too good to really be called a project, I guess. But he does have a long way to go. And he's very raw, but he's similar to Davis in the fact that he's a unique athlete for a guy with that size. I mean, he's nearing 7 foot now. He's got a nice body, and he plays wide receiver, which at that height is almost unheard of in football. And he's a good wide receiver, but it sort of shows it's just a different skill set than a lot of big guys that are raw have. He's got good hands, he's got good footwork, and football's really helped with that. And he continues to play football, which some people are like, you're risking an opportunity that you have in basketball, but football was his first love, and I think in a lot of ways it's actually helped him with things like catching the ball and the footwork, getting the footwork down, because his feet and his hands are very good, and that's one of the most important thing when you talk about a raw big man getting better is how well do they move in the post, can they move defensively in the post, and how can they catch the ball? You don't want to brick hands in there because that kills you on rebounds, and it loses the guard's trust when you're throwing it in. So I think Will Culley is a guy who may not be quite ready when he gets there, but it's a guy that Cal loves because of his raw potential and his athleticism and his ability to sort of fit in with that fast-paced transition style. And before it's all said and done with, I think Will Culley is going to be a very, very good college basketball player.
All right, and then you have Archie Goodwin. He's the guy that kind of got the ball rolling. He was the first to commit to Kentucky from the 2012 class. Ricky, you have seen this guy. What do you like about Archie, and what's he going to be able to bring to the table?
Well, Archie Goodwin is just a scorer. I mean, bottom line, when it comes down to it, he's very difficult to keep in front of you. He can score in multiple ways. He shoots it well. He's got a great mid-range game, a very polished mid-range game. You'll see him pull up a lot. You'll see him, pivot, pump fakes and pivots and lean-ins and stuff like that. He's just got a very diverse arsenal when it comes to the way he can score, and he also gets to the rim, and he's a decent athlete. So Archie Goodwin's going to be a guy who accumulates a lot of points in Cal's system, and fans will like him from the get-go just because right now he could step onto a college court and score, 20 points in a basketball game.
Right. So now to the possible future cats in the 2012 class, guys who are still looking around but are on Kentucky's radar, and guys that they have listed Kentucky on their list. I think the top guy that everyone wants to talk about is Shabazz Muhammad. He's the consensus number one player in the 2012 class. He went to Big Blue Madness. He was there for all that hoopla. He tweets a lot about Kentucky. He calls those players his guys. But at the same time, there's a lot of other talk that he could be going to UCLA or maybe this week it's USC. What's the feel with him? I know he's a tough guy to get a read on, but where do you think maybe he ultimately ends up?
Well, Shabazz Muhammad, first of all, like you mentioned, is a West Coast guy. And usually when you're talking about a West Coast kid, it's tough to get them off of the coast. The fact that he came to Big Blue Madness is obviously good. He's been here. You mentioned those are some of his guys. Well, let me tell you about something with the way Cal's recruiting. When you have nothing but All-Americans who have played on all these All-Star teams and stuff together, they all know each other. And that's helping him out because he does know some of the guys already at UK. He's played with guys like Anthony Davis on some of those Adidas Nations teams and another elite camps that they've participated in. Shabazz needs to be in a UK uniform just so we can see the crowd's reaction to him because the dude is so fun to watch. He's angry at the rim when he dunks. He's got the build of an NBA shooting guard already. He's very, very strong, very explosive, and he's not a great shooter in terms of consistency yet from the outside, but when he gets hot, he's unstoppable. And again, his strength is just unparalleled in the class right now at the guard position. So it's going to be very difficult for defenders, even at the college level, to sort of keep him from doing what he wants because of his physical strength. So Shabazz Muhammad is a great prospect for UK, but again, it's not easy to get West Coast guys to just come to Kentucky. And I think if he doesn't end up at UCLA or USC or one of those West Coast schools, it's certainly going to be UK, but you just can't count any of the West Coast schools out because it's just a different thing. I mean, that's why Biggie and Tupac had beef in the first place. It's just not the same world.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's two different worlds colliding on that front. And now let's talk about Jarnell Stokes. He's a Memphis guy.
Lots of buzz right now.
Right, a lot of buzz right now in the Kentucky world. Cal was on him for a little while, kind of backed off, but now it seems like Stokes is right there for the taking.
Yeah. When Cal comes down and grabs Jarnell Stokes, if he does, it's going to be a statement because that's Cal just saying, hey, I still own the Memphis recruiting scene, basically, if he comes down and get him. Because like you said, it sort of backed off him, and now if he comes back in and gets him, it's really going to be a statement get for Cal. Jarnell Stokes is a physical specimen. I mean, he weighs probably 255 pounds. He's an absolute load in the post, but he's also very athletic, and he's a competitor. He's played on a very good Memphis YOMCA team, and they did a lot of good things this summer with him sort of as their leader. I think he's used to being the guy which is good because at UK you got to be able to handle that pressure. I think he's ready for that, and I think he likes that about UK. He likes the spotlight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I think they're in a very good spot. There's even some rumors circulating on the internet right now that Cal's got that one all but wrapped up. I'd monitor that very closely over the next couple.